beginning, we spoke about the concept of creating emotions. Okay? How do we create emotions? Where's like the emotion store? Where do we get them from? There we go. We have Chachma, Bina, Das on top. And then all of those things, let's say are literally in your head, create the emotions from your body down. Okay? So before we get into it, let's just discuss emotions in general. There's two main emotions, and then what we're going to talk about today is the emotions of awe, which is like sometimes referred to, let's say in Hebrew it's yira, but sometimes we say it as respect, okay? Awe is like a drop of a scarier version than respect, but like awe. Like I can't think of awe with my parents, I think of like awe with Hashem, but there is a concept of respect. And the other like emotion that we're going to speak about is ahava, which is love. Okay, so we have yira and ahava. Okay, those are the two emotions that we're going to start with today. And we go back to the beginning and we talk about the store, like where do we get the emotions? Where do they come from? They come from generating chachma and bina and das. So let's just go back to that for 1 second and then we'll take it one step further. So how did we say, where does chachma and where does bina and what is das and how does the fusion of that create emotions and the things that we think about and the things that we feel about? Anybody remember?
Chachma, like the idea?
Yeah. Chachma is like this like burst of energy. It's this idea. It's greatness. It's something big. And then what? But it's also limitless, right? It could be endless. It can be anything.
One thing and like building on it.
Bina, right? Bina is actually the Hebrew word vayiven chava. Like when Chava was born, when Chava was created, it says vayiven chava, that he built within the nature of femininity this concept of bina, which is to be able to take things, break it down, and develop it. And I like, for those of you who know me, like I have a Bina. And I remember when I named her Bina, like I was just learning this concept. And I remember we were like driving, I'm like, I found out that I was having a girl. I know what I'm having always with my kids, even though I say I don't, but I really do. And I remember like, hey, what are we going to name her? And at that point, all my grandparents were alive. And I was just like, okay, you know, like my grandmothers were alive. And I was just like, okay, what are we going to name her? So we went to like the h.com list and we started going down names. And we got to Buria and I was like, oh, I love the name Buria. And then I was like, oh, but she had a hard life. She lost her children, whatever. And then we came down to next when we saw Bina. And I was like, done, Bina, I love it. And we used to like run our names by like Ramesh Weinberger all the time because like I just wanted to know when it comes to naming a kid, especially when it's not from like a family, it's like I want to just make sure. And he was like, Bina Yisera, I love it. It's like a feminine trait. And then I was like, okay, happens to be blame her, she's a smart kid, but Bina doesn't necessarily mean smarts. Bina means to be able to take it and develop it. But if these two things are on either side of the room, if we have Chachma on one side and we have Bina on the other side, how does that create something if they're two separately, right? Like I have an idea, I have the technology to develop it, but what do I need to fuse it together? Das. Das which is what we refer to as that like balancing trait where it's kind of like application of the Chachma and the Bina and then it creates something. But that only happens, Das, through focus. So we spoke about the concept of being focused. And when you think about something that you want and you focus in on that, that's what gives birth to the emotions. Okay? So that was just like a reminder from like chapter 3. Okay? Then we went even further in like 16 and 17 and we started talking about a whole thing about meditation. And we said, right, remember after we built up our lexicon and after we understood who the tzaddik and the Rosh and the Benoni are, all of a sudden we said, okay, so now what do we do? Now we know what to do. We know Amal Shal Talev, we know to control ourselves, we know action, and we know that we can control our outsides. But just serving Hashem like that is a little boring. So we said we need emotion. Right? So then in 16 and 17, anybody remember, how do we meditate then? Like if we want to create emotions to love Hashem, right? How do we create that? Through tvunos, through going through slowly, like every single day, like getting to the point, 16 and 17, remember, was very, very slow. It was like, it could be a whole lifetime that you work on it. And that's creating slow little baby steps and saying, okay, I can connect this to Hashem, I can connect this to Hashem. By the end of the day, I'll have a full-blown love for Hashem, right? But at the end of the day, it could mean when I'm 100, right? So let's say I want to go faster. And we said, oh, there's another way you could churn out emotions and you can develop that. And that's very, very fast. And that was in 18 through 25. And that was Ava Misutas. Oh, we have like teacher's pet up here, you know? It's amazing. I love it. No, it's good. It's right. No, it's all about the terms. Like once you have the terms, but here's the crazy thing. Like Ava Misuteris is a latent love. So love, bring that back. And that's how we develop emotions, but that's how we develop emotions in a fast way. So we said, how do we create emotions? Through Chachma Bina, developing it through Das. Then what do? Do them slowly. Slow's not good, make them fast. Then we took a whole nother like side detour and we spoke about all the things that will make us not happy, right? We spoke about all our shame and all our guilt and all the apathy, right? And now we're starting to come back to like actually practically use it. So I remember like all the way back in the beginning, I was like, we're going to learn about meditation, but we're going to do it in like chapter 40. And here we are, and it's chapter 40, and we're going to start to learn how to develop these emotions and how to feel connected to Hashem. Okay, so now if we have these two ideas of love and awe, how do those work in a relationship? Like, is one more important? Is one more foundational? Does one have to become before the other? Can you have a relationship that's just love? Can you have a relationship that's just awe? Think about it. You need balance. You need both, right? What?
Otherwise, you have fear. If you don't love that person,
then you just feel it. So let's think of
It's the concept of like Hashem being referred to as your king and your father.
exactly.
So you can't just be a servant, but you can't also just be a child.
That's
you
it.
need.
Right. That's actually exactly what Tanya says. Did you read chapter 41?
I did not.
She went ahead. You know those kids who like go ahead like in school and they're like, I know the answer. Okay, no, but that's exactly what it says. Right, Isaac Jeremiah. I'm always giving BYA shout outs. We should give Isaac Jeremiah shout outs. Yes, I know. So the idea where you can't have one without the other. So now we know that. We can't have one without the other. Now the question is one more foundational? That doesn't mean more important. It means is it one more foundational than the other?
Yes.
Yes? You feel like love is more foundational? Okay, so explain that.
Is awe and stuff the same thing or no? Because
Awe and respect are really the same thing.
just because you love someone, even if you don't want to do it.
Right. So you know what's so interesting? Because we primarily, the way that you just said it is like do. When you associate love, the first thing that should pop into your head is do. Let's say I want to show somebody I love them. I want to give more to them. I want to expand myself. Love is about doing. We happen to have 248 mitzvos that are doing, right? The things that we're supposed to do. The mitzvos aseh, honor your parents. By the way, honor, which you think maybe is respect, honor is not. Honor, kavod, is actually doing. Like when you're supposed to honor your parents, you're supposed to do for them. You're supposed to bring them food. You're supposed to drive them. You're supposed to pick them up. You're supposed to be doing, even though you think honor, maybe respect is not, pulling back. So when we talk about love, it's always in the state of doing. It's a state of like what we call in Hebrew, like hishpastos. Like Hashem is giving himself, spreading himself, making bigger. Another, by the way, byword for love and for chesed and doing is gadlus. Like if you ever hear, we explain Hashem as like gedula. Gedula is like another word for chesed. Think about it. When somebody's a big, giving, loving person, you know those people, like conjure up this like image of somebody in your mind that you're like, that's a big person. When you say big, you mean in terms of what they're able to do, their impact on this world. So when you love somebody and you want to give them more of that and show them that self-expression ends up being doing. However, the opposite, and this is maybe why love is not foundational, and I'm going to go back 1 second, hold on. But I like what you said because it is about doing. If love is about doing, then awe and yira and respect is about boundaries, like not doing. So like the opposite of the, like, would be like the 365 losases, like don't do this, don't kill, don't steal, don't, right? And it's funny, I always think like, why are there more don'ts than do's? One doesn't cancel out the other. The more that you don't do, the more that you step out of the way, like you said, like Faigy, like boundaries, that's more of a yira approach. So chesed and gevura, chesed is giving, kindness, love, I love you. Gevura is restraint, which is holding back. So now we're not talking about chachma bina das anymore. We move down from the intellect, and now we're going down to the body. And the right hand represents chesed, which is giving, which is doing, which is action, which is putting myself out there for the person that I love, giving them more, going to the seasons at 7 o'clock in the morning to buy ring pops because you're the Shabbos mommy, because I love you, I will do things for you, right? Boundaries would be like, you should have reminded me on Tuesday you're the Shabbos mommy, and now it's Friday and I'm going to hold back from getting everything you do. Obviously, if the kid is a young age, sorry, I'm talking about a 6-year-old, then it's fine, we could do it for her. But when a kid gets a little bit older, you're like, I'll do for you, to the point where it's not even anymore because there are no boundaries. Okay, so if chesed is giving and gedula is kindness, is love, Then Yira is restraint, pulling back, holding back, boundaries. Okay, so let's do this like typical scenario. I never know, like, should I paint a picture of a teenager? Should I paint a picture of a husband? What's the picture that we want to, what's the image that we want to work on, right? Like, I always try to say this. Okay, so let's say like Shay's Taub gives this amazing example, and he can make fun of himself because he's a guy, so it's okay. So I'll say it in like this shame him so that it's not like I'm thinking about my husband because he's always on time. But the story of the husband who will show up late after work, not call, not text, not even like check in, but when they come home, they bring a dozen roses because it's his wife's favorite flowers. So obviously the ideal would be for him to come home on time and bring roses. But here he didn't come home on time, but he brought roses. So is there boundaries? Is there love? Like what's that? How does that present itself? Like you come home and he comes home and you didn't speak to him, you didn't hear from him, you don't know why he's 5 hours late, but he does have roses. So the roses is an expression of love. Being home on time would be an expression of respect and boundaries. So how do I look at those roses when he comes home? It's like, I'll take those roses. I will put them in a vase, but how will I put them in the vase? I'll be like, there are thorns on there, right? Or even though I'm such a big talker, because sometimes when he's not home, it's like, I got this. I'm super mom. Do you know that feeling? Like, yeah. So it's like, I want to be upset, but it's like he's trying to show love, but when there's no boundaries, I can't even love you when there's no boundaries. It's more disrespectful. It takes the love that could have been there. If there would have been even one phone call or even a text of like, hey, I'm running late, my phone is going to die. Even that would have been one boundary. That would have been one sense of respect. But because there was no respect and no communication, it's like, take that love that you thought you were giving me and I am going to put that in the garbage.
Which feel like what I think of is the little sassy is like as long as I'm doing the assy, it's like it's fine. It's fine. But
which one is easier? By the way, which one is easier to do? Now that we're talking about it.
I mean, the respect is the more important one. The Yura is more important because that love can come, let's say, after.
That's the answer,
love
right?
And respect is like the worst kind of thing.
It's the worst kind of thing, right? It's like when people are like, I love everybody. I don't have any best friends. And I'm like, you love everybody. That means then everybody's equal and you're all, like, it can't be like that. If it's all love, then especially no boundaries, then that love becomes not love anymore either. So it's like you've lost the love. It's very self-centered, exactly. So it's all about, it's like, I know that you like roses, so I'm gonna get it for you, but I'm disrespecting every single boundary leading up to that. So then it's like a little, it's manipulative, yes,
Not
exactly.
Like the whole like marriage thing, but like I feel like whenever
I know, that's how I was like, should we do teenager or should we do marriage? It's okay, we can do both.
Whenever there are issues, like not like in general, it's very broad theme, but I feel like there's a common theme of like not respecting each other, which is the worst thing because like that's the most important thing, like in a relationship with anyone.
Right. So I think that what we're realizing from these examples is that
harder. The boundaries is harder.
The boundaries is much harder, right? To do things. Let's say like.
It's to go get the ring pops and to be whatever. It's harder to be like, no, I'm not gonna.
Oh my gosh, it's so much harder. So much harder to be like, you forgot that you need a triboard and Varieties is closed and I can't go. Why is Varieties the only place that sells triboards? Like, why can't I just get it on Amazon, right?
Without that thing and to make that whatever.
Right. I left my lunch at home, but I was prepared. Right. So boundaries is much harder, we realize, than doing. And think about it in Yiddishkeit also. It's just so much easier. Sometimes it's just easier to do than it is to not do, right? Like, and honestly, I think this is where the whole conservative reform movement came from. Because, and I'm not like, whatever, disclaimer, I'm not, like, I didn't study this, but the idea of being able to do without having the boundaries, like going to shul, driving to shul, and like, I don't know, like to me the token example is like Larry David. Like he's a Jew, right? And then he would like buy tickets for Yom Kippur, for Rosh Hashanah, drive there. All those do's were amazing, but then the don't do's is what's much harder to do. So the love comes easier because love is just flowing, it's giving. Where putting up boundaries is much